Hey, it's Alexander Creek, astrologer and intuitive here. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. We're going to be talking all about the astrology of Venus in Scorpio from September 23rd to about October 18th. Remember, if you're watching me here on YouTube and if you're enjoying what you see, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Maybe leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling the energy and the astrology, and turn on those notifications so that you don't miss another video. And if you're listening to the audio version, To the Stars in Astrology and Intuition podcast, make sure you leave a 5-star review so more people find it. And as always, you can keep up with me on Instagram or TikTok, or visit my website, Dogstar Oracle, to find out what kind of readings I'm doing or to work with me if you feel called. So let's talk about Venus and Scorpio. Okay, so Venus in astrology, many of you might know something about Venus. We typically associate like love and pleasure and money and relationships with Venus, rightfully so. Venus is going to be, she's in, while I am filming this video, she is still in Libra. And Venus loves to be in Libra. Libra is her air sign home, right? So Venus being about, pleasure, connection, like the things that sort of make life really sweet. Venus in Libra is really, Venus in Libra is like a really kind of light place for her to be, right? Like Libra we associate with like fashion and beauty, but also balance and justice. And Venus does really well there. And or rather, instead of saying she does really well there, she's very comfortable there. Like that's one of her homes. She has all of her resources and she's able to do what she does best in the sign of Libra. However, so she's going to be leaving Libra to the much sort of darker waters of Scorpio around September 23rd, and will be there until October 18th. So it's kind of going from this sort of lighter Libra energy to this more intense, passionate energy of Scorpio. And so on a really technical basis, Venus in Scorpio is considered to be Venus would be considered to be in her detriment in Scorpio. Um, so when I'm saying that, essentially, like because Venus rules Taurus and it rules Libra, the opposite sign of Taurus would be Scorpio. So Venus would consider to be sort of in her detriment. And so while that's important, I think on a technical level to kind of talk about like what Venus and Scorpio might do, what that might sort of bring through for us in the collective. I really kind of refer to it as like Venus being in a very sort of unconventional sign, essentially, because Scorpio is a sign that is ruled by Mars traditionally. Mars is the planet of heat, of passion, of war, and also of severing, of cutting. And Venus is a planet that brings things together, right? So Venus in Scorpio, it's sort of like we're sort of bringing these really kind of discordant energies into one. And if we think of Venus in Libra as this sign of like light pleasantries and beauty and like enjoying connections and relationships, but it's in this air sign experience. So it can be more on the surface. Sometimes it can be more, sort of exchanging like pleasantries. And Venus in Scorpio is really not afraid to get down and dirty, to get to like the really intimate, uncomfortable experience of Venus, which I think Venus and Scorpio represents a lot of the time, is really getting comfortable, being very uncomfortable, getting to a much more sort of intense, passionate expression of Venus, right? And a more complicated expression of Venus as well, because also when we think of Venus and Scorpio, we think really strong desires. Like Mars is a planet of desire, so Venus being in that that energy of like deeply desiring something, not afraid of feeling these really big, passionate, sometimes scary feelings, because it is very scary sometimes, when you are, let's say, like when you're deeply in love with someone and you're not sure if they love you back, or, like bearing your feelings and bearing your soul is a very vulnerable experience. And that's kind of the experience of Venus and Scorpio. Scorpio, it is a water sign. So, we are talking more about being more connected to the emotions, more connected to tenderness. I'm not saying Venus and Scorpio is a tender placement, because it's not necessarily. Sometimes Venus and Scorpio can have trouble, sometimes opening up like the doors to its heart, because it can feel again, scary to let someone in. And also, once Venus in Scorpio is really into someone or in a relationship, it can be extremely committed. It's like we are soulmates for life. I am yours, you are mine, that kind of thing. Especially because Scorpio is on this Taurus Scorpio axis. And the Taurus Scorpio axis can tend to be possessive also. And like a shadow side of Venus in Scorpio would be possessiveness, would be jealousy. And am I saying that every single person on Earth is going to experience possessiveness and jealousy while Venus is in Scorpio? Probably not, but it's definitely going to be in the air more, especially if you have a lot of Taurus and Scorpio things sort of going on in your chart, or if Venus is really activated for you in some way. This would definitely be an energy that you might want to kind of clue into a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about because Venus in astrology represents love, relationships, connection, self-worth things. A little bit about how Venus and Scorpio might sort of act in relationships. Again, it's sort of like this is really deep and passionate energy. It can be very devoted. Again, slow to trust. And also because, again, Venus and Scorpio, it's ruled by Mars. I am aware that in modern astrology, Pluto is considered to be sort of like the modern ruler of Scorpio, but I think it makes more sense to talk about Mars in this way. So Mars right now is in Cancer. So it's interesting that we are going to have Mars and Venus both in signs where they're either in detriment or fall, signs that they are not super comfortable in. Mars in Cancer is a very emotional expression of Mars. It's a much more tender expression of Mars. Again, it's really interested in kind of protecting and guarding its heart. And I think that might be a theme that we'll be experiencing during Venus and Scorpio, is like protection of the heart and like really, really big expressions of emotion. Even if we're not expressing them outwardly, we're going to be feeling it sort of internally. With Mars in Cancer, so excuse me, with Venus in Scorpio being ruled by Mars in Cancer, this does feel like a very emotional Venus in Scorpio. A much more, I don't know, tender and intimate expression of the sign, or like fears around intimacy. So I think that'll be really interesting to kind of witness as we go through it, even if it's not us experiencing these things. Maybe people around us, maybe people kind of like in the news, or kind of these sort of archetypes that are sort of playing out in the collective. And the last thing I'm going to mention about Mars and Cancer is really kind of concerned with like emotional security. Like, who do I place my trust in to express my feelings toward? Is it safe to express kind of what I have in is it safe to express what I have in my heart right now with this particular iteration of Venus and Scorpio? Now, let's talk about the aspects that Venus will be making while she's traveling through the zodiac. Because that will tell us about this particular kind of ride of Venus and Scorpio, and kind of what we all may experience, or what you may experience on an individual level. So, as far as like the aspect she's making, it does seem like pretty chill for the most part until we get toward of to the end, and then it can get really bumpy. So, what's interesting is that around October 4th and October 8th, so kind of in between there, maybe a day or two before October 4th and a day or two after October 8th, Venus will be making some harmonious aspects to Saturn and Mars. Saturn and Mars are not friendly planets. Saturn is the planet of restriction and limitation, and saying and like delays, not now. And Saturn can be cold. But Saturn is also concerned with longevity and things that are long term. It wants us to kind of build for the future, even if it sucks in the moment. It's like, you do it right, you won't have to do it again. That's kind of Saturn's vibe, right? So around October 4th, Venus will be making a trine to Saturn. And it's nice that she's making a harmonious aspect versus a more difficult, discordant energy, because this energy is sort of saying like Venus and Scorpio may be really interested around this time in building relationships that have long-term potential, or taking stock of our relationships and thinking like, hey, are things going as well as they could be? Do we need to like spend a little time talking about our feelings or getting a little bit uncomfortable with our emotions so that we have like long-term potential going forward? Or it could be that people that you are meeting around this time might have sort of like long-term potential for you, or perhaps there might be like a flavor or an energy in the air or conversations around like, hey, is this relationship going somewhere? Um, Around October 8th, we have Venus will be trine Mars. So this is like a very sort of typical, like when Venus and Mars get together and it's a more kind of harmonious energy, this is definitely like a mingling, let's get spicy in our relationships kind of energy. This is energy that is sort of wanting to merge a little bit, wanting to be desired, wanting to desire something. So whether that is like a classic kind of romantic sexual energy, absolutely. That can be like a really, really hot energy. That can also just be, especially like if you have like a lot of like water energy going on in your chart, maybe you have like a Scorpio rising, or maybe you have like Cancer energy or something. This might be a time where you just feel like more desired. You feel like you're really kind of like, you're feeling kind of hot, essentially. So this is definitely kind of this, um, wanting to connect energy, right? So again, pretty chill. Like I'm glad that these are harmonious aspects and not like discordant conflict energies. This is kind of, I almost subtitled this video as Venus and Scorpio, I like it rough, because like, it's like making these harmonious aspects to sort of Daddy Saturn and like hot warrior Mars. It's sort of like, yeah, let's get spanked a little bit, but it feels good. It's kind of the vibe I get from these. The last thing I want to mention before we talk about readings for the signs are going to be the Venus will be opposite Uranus around October 14th. This is the one aspect I really want you to pay attention to. Uranus is really about like disruption, rebelliousness, twisting something on its head, unconventional things. Um, so with Venus being opposite Uranus, then this is about 26 degrees of Scorpio and Taurus, respectively. Um, and if you have like a personal placement around 26 degrees of Taurus, I would say 2 degrees on either side. Probably not. At maybe 3, but I would say around 2 degrees. You want to keep those orbs tight. Um, you could maybe you could possibly be really feeling this energy. So with Venus opposite Uranus, it's really kind of like classically like a sudden, unexpected twists in relationships sort of energy. Like on the very kind of non-dramatic, mundane side, you could just be feeling something in the air of like, we order the same takeout every Saturday. Let's do something different. I don't want Asian food. I want like Mexican, right? Or like, let's go to some crazy party that we've never been to, that we've always talked about it. You could just feel all of a sudden it's like time to do something different to kind of spice things up. Um, and again, it's sort of whatever Venus represents. So fashion, beauty, art, music, relationships, connections, pleasure. Um, and again, Venus is in Scorpio here, so like Venus is very much like she has like the mask of like the spooky, dark lady, kind of energy. So there is this kind of um there's kind of this like intense sort of expression of Venus, or maybe even like a darker or more typically uncomfortable expression of Venus. I particularly love Venus in Scorpio, but I'm a Scorpio rising, so it's a little bit different for me. um it could even be, frankly, on the opposite side. I do feel like this energy is more disruptive, because it is an opposition. And this could be um, something as extreme as separations in relationships, or sudden changes that maybe kind of come out of nowhere, or you feel like, you know what, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm ready to change things up now. Um, that could be like the more extreme manifestation. For most of us, it's probably not going to manifest that way. But that there is like turbulence in the air as far as relationships go. Um, And frankly, for some of you, it could be like a hot fling. It's like it could be like, and this is kind of like a one and done kind of thing, or like in like a Venus pleasurable experience with someone that you might not necessarily go for, or that's like outside of like the confines of your current like relationship paradigm. It's like experiences with people that are unusual or exciting is kind of a typical kind of Venus Uranus expression. So, let's talk about. I'm going to actually mention really quick before we talk about a reading for the sign. I have a story about Venus Uranus from 2 years ago because we had the same aspect 2 years ago. And I remember thinking it was right across my first house and seventh house. And I was like, I'm probably going to meet someone if I go out tonight. So I went out by myself and ended up meeting this guy, and we hit it off and are like making out and fun. Anyway, I had had a couple cocktails at the time, and I remember like I went. So I went to like another bar with him and his friends, and I went off with his friend like around a corner because he was like, I had to just help him out with something. I forgot what it was. And then that friend's boyfriend was like really mad at me for something because he thought I was like hitting on his friend. And I remember thinking, I'm always thinking about astrology when even when there's just like drama happening in front of my face, I'm like, oh, this is an expression of Venus Uranus because Venus is in Scorpio. There's that jealousy, there's that possessiveness that we get, the sort of randomness of me like meeting and sort of hooking up with someone, and this kind of turbulence like in the air. I ended up having like a really fun time, but I did notice I was like, this person's mad at me for like they're getting jealous for no reason. Number one, because they're intoxicated, and, the whole world's against them. But that was kind of a classic Venus and Scorpio opposite Uranus kind of thing. So let's talk about what you might a little bit of what to expect for your rising sign. So let's talk about that. Okay, so reminder that I do recommend you listen for your rising sign. If you have an accurate birth time, if you don't have an accurate birth time, listen for your sun or moon. As always, you can calculate those charts for free. I'd recommend astro.com or astro-seek.com. And links for those are going to be in the comments or in the show notes. And also, if you're listening, you can also just click on the timestamp for your sign, and then you can you can just jump to right to your sign forecast and have to listen to everybody else's. So okay, so first of all, Aries rising, we're just going to go through the order of the zodiac as always. So Aries rising, you're up first. So Venus is actually going to be going through your 8th house while she's in Scorpio. So Venus can represent smoothing things over, attraction, opportunities. So Venus going through your 8th, this can really be about like you might be like simply like desiring like credit loans. There can be luck through other people's through other people's resources. I cannot talk. Luck through other people's resources and money. Because the 8th house represents where we kind of financially merge stuff, where we merge our things, our possessions, our energy, because it follows the 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So this could be a time where you might have a little bit of better luck, like applying for a credit card, applying for a loan. There can definitely be like themes around like, let's say that we're like moving in and there's like this intimate kind of experience of like, oh my god, we're like sharing all our stuff. This can also bring like greater awareness of like your intimacy in relationships also, because Venus in Scorpio has this a lot of this sort of intense sort of passionate depth to it. The 8th house can also like represent like emotional trauma, emotional baggage, like the scary parts of relationships, essentially. Like when we get into relationships of like, the fear of being seen, essentially, right? So there can definitely be some uncomfortable energy around that. Or, you know, perhaps like there's some healing through like intimate sharing is sort of kind of is sort of what I am seeing here. So for Taurus, Venus going through your 7th house, this can represent, I mean, Venus is about connection, pleasure, So definitely like this could bring this could bring like uh, a depth, a heat, passion to relationships for you. This could be about a romantic relationship. This could be a time that you're wanting to. This is not like really dating on like this. This is not really like on the surface. Let's go on a quick coffee date and get to know you. This is like, oh, I met you and now I'm like really magnetized, like attracted to you kind of energy, right? Like this is gonna be when you're kind of experience that magnetic Scorpio energy through your relationships. So it could be that you are taking more of like a fling to like a full-fledged like committed relationship. This could also be a time of maybe wanting to like do business together with someone because Scorpio is also very connected to like resources and money. So this could be a time when you're like joining forces with someone to go into business. And just in general, the seventh house represents partnerships of all kinds, business, platonic, romantic relationships. Venus going through your seventh house sort of symbolizes like connection, getting together. But there is this sort of intense, passionate element with Scorpio and a little bit of uncomfortable energy too. I mean, frankly, Taurus, for you, Venus is your chart ruler. So this is not like an easy breezy Venus time. This is definitely maybe offering some connection in relationships, but there's like this intimate, deep, sharing, passionate quality sort of to them right now. And but in any case, I see relationships heating up for you to some degree. I am going to mention though, I think it was whenever I forgot when exactly Venus goes. When exactly Venus goes is opposite of Uranus would be October 14th. I would definitely, you would be someone that I am interested in hearing from how that goes for you because that could be reversals in relationships, changes in them, or like let's do something different in relationships energy. I would think would definitely be manifesting for you personally around that time. So Gemini rising, Venus is in Scorpio for you in your sixth house. So this could be a time when you're really wanting. This could be a time when you can like attract or put yourself out there for more work, for getting a job, for putting your for getting some sort of like promotion like within your workplace. It could be a time of some interesting like relationship stuff coming up with like coworkers, even. Or this could also be a time of like really putting what you want forward as far as like your work routines. Like, making your work routines more interesting or beautifying them or bringing some more depth or passion to them somehow. I don't know how you can bring depth or passion to a work routine, but I don't know what you do for work. It might be really good if you're some kind of like dominatrix or something. I would think Venus going into Scorpio for you through your sixth house would be excellent. And this is also a good time for like improving health. Bringing in some sort of like health routine or new exercise routine or something that brings, I would say, like, especially because it's Scorpio, like bringing some heat to the party, like stepping up like more intense exercise or, doing like more of like just something with health that, like if it makes you like a little uncomfortable, it might be a good thing. Of course, I'm not a doctor, so, all that disclaimer. So yeah, so I would say more work, bringing in, putting yourself up for work assignments or promotions or having interesting relationship developments with coworkers, or even, that's kind of what it's giving for me is sort of improvements in sort of work and health or opportunities around there. For Cancer, Venus is going through your fifth house. This is kind of a classic Venus sort of story for you because this could be introducing, if you're single, it could be a good time for a romantic spark with someone. And again, it's not just on the surface. It's very kind of like more of like an intense, passionate kind of energy. Cancer, you're pretty, I think, energized right now in general because Mars is in your sign going through your first house. And so it's really kind of, I feel like you need to get some physical activity out. This is good to be merging with other people, if you know what I'm saying. Also good time to stoke creativity. Again, fifth house is sexuality or sensual energy. Think very sacral chakra. So like we're creating something. we're bringing more fun into our lives. But for some reason, your fun might just be more on the intense side because you have Scorpio on that fifth house. It could also bring some improvements in relationships with children or bring something beneficial from children into your life at this time as well. Um, that Venus Uranus thing for you, that could really kind of bring some disruptions or some breakthroughs in your social life. Or maybe perhaps you are meeting, like some sort of flame or something through like groups of friends or something, because that Venus Uranus opposition on October 14th is happening across your 11th house of friends and 5th house of romance. Leo energy, Leo rising. Venus is going through your 4th house. So this could be a time where you're perhaps looking to improve your resources or financial or financial life as it concerns your home. This might be a time that you're like, I want to refinance, or I'm going to like see how much like my home is worth, or like take out a second mortgage or something. It's all very possible with Venus going through your 4th. It could simply be that you're wanting to like redecorate or rejuvenate your home a little bit, or that you're feeling more pleasure in spending time with family. It could Venus and Scorpio might be doing her best here to sort of help you smooth over relationships with family too. Venus and Scorpio is not amazing at smoothing things over or diplomacy. She tries, but sometimes there can be bumps in the road there because Venus is sort of in her detriment here. But I kind of feel like, all those things I said, like relating to home, especially like, Venus and Scorpio is very financially shrewd. So financial things involving the home, I can really see for you. That Venus Uranus thing, that opposition on October 14th, it might be conflict somehow with like career and family, or with an authority figure or a boss in family, or something like that. Or perhaps, maybe there is for maybe a few of you, maybe like a romantic situation involving a boss or something. That could also be a possibility. There's a lot of ways that this can play out, but for you, that's falling across your 10th house of career, authority figures, and reputation versus your private life, your home, and your family. So we'll see how that plays out. For Virgo rising, Venus is moving through your 3rd house of communication projects, your commute, siblings, and extended family. So I always struggle with the 3rd house. It's just so many things. So, but I'm just gonna go off. I'm gonna kind of go off the vibe here. So Venus in the 3rd, I would say you might want to like spice up your usual like coffee shop haunts, like your usual hangout spots. It's a good time to kind of just try something new. This would be where you would strike up like a conversation with someone, like again at your sort of like local sort of community haunts. This could be this is a really this is a good time if you have any sort of speaking or teaching or communicating to do. You're more magnetic. People are listening to you more. So if you have some sort of presentation, some sort of communication thing, this can really stimulate anything like writing, communication, throat chakra. It can be a really good time, or like really fun time to like learn something new or something unusual, something fun. That Venus Uranus thing for you, it could be that perhaps like maybe you're introduced to some sort of new higher concept or some sort of new educational thing, or perhaps you're really intrigued at the thought of like travel, or perhaps travel plans get interrupted. Perhaps there's so I'm going to say something spicy related to education, travel, maybe possibly sort of coming your way with that Venus Uranus thing. That's a hard one to delineate, so don't be mad at me. So anyway, there you go, Virgo rising, and also my apologies. Anyway, moving on. So Libra rising, Venus is moving into your 2nd house. Again, like Leo rising, I can see this as a financial transit for you. This is going through your 2nd house of money, your possessions, skills and talents that make you money. things that help support you in your physical life. Venus in Scorpios, she's a shrewd bitch. We love her. She knows how to get her coin, and she knows how to make connections with people that can help make her money or improve her financial stability. So this is definitely a good time for bringing in another source of income, figuring out how to make some more money, for position, like, for making yourself, for magnetizing money to you, in some way, for asking for, some kind of, you might find yourself asking for some kind of raise also, because Mars and Cancer going through your 10th house, there could be a lot of energy directed toward your career right now. And like, I'm trying to get ahead. I'm trying to get this thing. Mars is a bumpier energy because it's more aggressive. So you're really pushing forward in career. I really feel like maybe you're very fixated on your goals right now. And Venus going through your second house can really maybe help position you to be on a more like, better earning position, or, some sort of gig that you're finding that's going to make you like a little money. But this I see as a money transit for you. Either really focused on money, bringing it in, being very shrewd with it, maybe changing your spending or changing some things around. But there's definitely this trine and this, harmonious, quote unquote, energy from your 10th house of career to your 6th house of work to your 2nd house of earned income. So I see dollar signs in work as sort of what I'm seeing for you with this energy. Scorpio, Venus is going through your sign. Yay. So this is really a time to sort of embody that mysterious dark lady energy, to really own the fact that you are extra magnetic around this time, maybe feeling a little bit more passionate. This is a time to, I would think, to like promote yourself a little bit, or even just to enjoy like playing with your identity. Like you're like, oh, it might be time to like experiment with like my jewelry a little bit, or like my appearance, or to kind of impart some of that mysterious magnetic Scorpio energy onto your physical appearance, and simply just feeling a little bit of blessings from Venus in your first house, right? So I would say focus on pleasure, enjoying yourself, promoting yourself, all of these things. October 14th, we do, there is that possibility of separations or breaks in relationships, or simply changes in relationships that happen really quickly. I may have just burped on I may have burped a little on the microphone 5 seconds ago. Please forgive me. I'm not re-recording this, and we're moving on. So I hope my software sort of edits that out for me. But you really might be feeling that feeling of like, let's change things up. Whether that is relationships or your sort of personal appearance, it's like a feeling of like, let's do something different. I'm sick of doing the same thing, running with a different crowd, accepting that invitation to sort of hang out with this different person, or to go to this party or something. You might want to experiment with it. It's kind of giving experimentation, but on the extreme side, it could be endings or some separations also, whether that is romantic, platonic, business. That is very possible. And I would really say stand on your morals and principles and beliefs right now, because Mars is going through your 9th house of your perspective and your beliefs at this moment. So Sagittarius, Scorpio is going through your 12th house. So this is more of an internal energy of Venus. On one level, this could be like, hey, I'm actually really enjoying being at home. Like, because 12th house is rest, retreat, isolation, mental and spiritual health. So it could just more time doing spiritual, sort of inward focused things. It could be, Scorpio is this really kind of, this sign that's about like transformation. So this could be a time where you're really kind of wanting to sort of, kind of journey inward a little bit, because there are, and I would think that there are going to be some sort of, internally sort of rich things happening for you again, like in like really private sort of internal spiritual way. It could also be that perhaps you're starting a relationship right now where there are these sort of secret spicy Venus things happening for you that no one knows about. That's private, it's illicit, that you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. That's possible. I'm not saying that everyone that every single Sag rising having Venus going through their 12th is having some kind of affair, but it is sort of funny. I bet some people that are Sag rising with Venus and Scorpio will maybe have some sort of storyline or something going on in secret that's sort of very spicy concerning their relationships. As far as the Venus Uranus thing, possibly some interruptions, breakthroughs, reversals happening with maybe work stuff. It could be like work relationships or work projects or something. Possibly sort of going on for you around October 14th. So let me know how that goes for you. With Capricorn energy, Venus is going to be going through your 11th house. So this can be a time to seek Scorpio wants to get ahead. Frankly, Venus and Scorpio is good at that. She's shrewd. She's tactical. And this can be really good networking transit for you about like, hey, you can help me with this. Like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So whether that is just simply connecting with your friends, this could be professional networking. This also kind of reminds me too of like, also if this is not business or networking, it's also kind of like, let's get naughty with my friends. Let's go cause a little mischief and have some funsies together. Or, sort of again, it's giving Thelma and Louise a little bit. I'm not saying you're like gonna rob banks or something, but it does kind of give me the feeling of like intimate quality time that could be a little bit naughty because Venus and Scorpio is not afraid to be a little taboo. It could also even be like maybe we start like maybe there's a friendship that turns into some kind of like romantic flirtation or something going on here too that maybe you didn't expect because we have that Venus Uranus thing happening on October 14th. But regardless, friends, networking opportunities, friends giving opportunities, linking up with friends, like professional networking, that all is kind of what this transit feels like for me. For Aquarius rising, Venus is going through your 10th house. This would be a time to sort of tactically, shrewdly promote yourself at work. Maybe make yourself. It's like Venus and Scorpio, I think, can be very strategic. Making yourself be seen in a sort of more beneficial light. When it comes to your work or career or authority figures, it can really be about shining at work or elevating your position or just general public like reputation somehow. The thing about Venus and Scorpio is that sometimes those Venus things can be a little bit bumpy for her. So perhaps like maybe your position is raised up in your career somehow. Maybe this could provoke jealousy also. Is that's something about this Venus and Scorpio thing. It can maybe be like, I'm doing really great at work and I'm being praised for it, but perhaps it's making someone else uncomfortable. Again, it's not really a problem. But at the same time, I do want to point out that is something that can happen with Venus and Scorpio. Again, this would be a time if you're like seeking work, if you're seeking career, this could be a really good time to interview or show off your portfolio. Venus is opposing Uranus on the 14th. There's maybe some sort of conflict happening between career and family. Perhaps there's like a disturbance in the home or with family, or there's some sort of conflict happening here. Or there's just some sort of shakeup between your career and home sectors, or it could be like, oh, all of a sudden I'm switching my routine to working from home to like work in the office now, or vice versa. But there is something kind of going on with that, or perhaps something about like your relationships with people in career or at home. There's some sort of shakeup there. For Pisces, Venus is going through your 9th house. So this does feel like a good time to explore, whether that is traveling, whether that is looking into different kind of spiritual modalities, or learning new things, or even like learning astrology right now could be really beneficial, because Venus is about things that we enjoy, that sort of come easy. The 9th house is education, spirituality, and travel. So anything mind expanding, anything connecting to spirituality, the sort of higher sort of ideals. It's also possible to that maybe you have like some kind of breakthrough like in your thinking or in your communication. Like there's some sort of like revelation that you have, or possibly like, and this is referring to the Venus Uranus opposition on October 14th. It's also possible that, hey, maybe maybe you meet someone that's like comes from another place or is a foreigner or is different from you somehow, that has like a different cultural or religious background, or that maybe is exciting to you, on an intellectual level, whether this is like a friendship, someone you just provoking your thought and your interest, or maybe it's like on a more romantic level, or this that could be a one of the sparks that happen during this Venus Uranus sort of transit. So that is all for this week. We are going to be we will be talking about the solar eclipse in Libra next, so make sure that you are subscribed for that. I'm going to try to have that as early as possible because that's a really big energy. And it's also that solar eclipse in Libra is ruled by this Venus in Scorpio, so you have a little bit of a background kind of going in to that video if you watch this one first. So, be one of the cool kids. So anyway, I will talk to you guys soon. Like, remember, if you are wanting a reading or to work with me in some way, visit my website, darkstarOracle.com. And yeah, here we go. I will talk to y'all soon. Thanks, guys.